Hey there, folks. Happy botanizing. I'm just re-recording this one. I don't pretend to be a pro at all with these videos, so I'm sure I could use some help. It's great to put a video on and then realize you were using the wrong microphone. I think this one's better. The quality's better. Yeah, I was using a microphone that was located about 5 meters away, so that's really fun. Yeah, look, I'll try and do a better job. If you haven't come across this one, this is something I've been working on for the last couple of years in a totally voluntary capacity. It's just another native plant, Australian native plant database, which you might want to have a look at. Uh, we've really ramped it up over the last 4 years. It began as a COVID project, a COVID lockdown project. And an email just went around, and I guess we found ourselves with some spare time, and this is what I started to work on with some other people within Australian Plant Society. So Australian Plant Society New South Wales, I guess you could call us a sort of horticultural group of just enthusiasts who like to promote the cultivation, horticulture, and conservation as well of Australian native plants. Keen gardeners, bushwalkers. We fight for the odd conservation issue. I'm the voluntary conservation officer for New South Wales and Sutherland branch as well, or Sutherland group. I've given a lot of presentations for the society at different things, quarterly gatherings and regional meetings and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a good group to be involved in. What I guess how it's benefited me is just learning and getting exposed to plants that you probably wouldn't have got exposed to if you just kept, you know, looking at your local bushland and I guess going to local native nurseries and things like that. What you get from these people is the whole range of Australian plants that are out there and that you can grow and try and plonk in your garden, and it's very good for that. It's really awesome for that sort of thing, and we've got a lot of amateur propagators, seed collectors, and people sort of passing plants around. They get particularly interested in particular species, I guess, and they're known for mucking around, with flannel flowers or, orchids or something like that. But yeah, it's a really good group. So we decided to give our group a bit more, I guess, a bit more profile and a bit more impetus, I guess, because we get emailed a lot of questions from people about growing native plants. We decided to try and make an online database, an online native plant database. And the way I approached it pretty quickly was I'm going to pour all my botanical lore, I like to call it, LORE, into this website. So everything I used to teach botany students at TAFE, I'm throwing it all into here. So, telling you that wattles have alternate leaves that might be compound or simple, telling you that, all Myrtaceae plants have simple and, simple leaves, telling you that, this particular genus has opposite compound leaves, and this is the fruit type of this genus, and this is the flower setup of this genus. So I'm trying to throw all that in as consistently as I can, and I keep editing, I keep adding plants. It's a massive job, but it's up there now. And just in January 2024, we hit 1,000 plants. So we now have 1,000 native plants on there that you can read information about. And what we've done is combine natural information, so naturally occurring stuff about the plant, combined with horticultural information. And that's what we think the main thrust of our website is. You can look up a plant, learn all about its natural range, and then you can read about its horticultural potential and its horticultural use. And there's some other great information in there too, and that's what we really like about this. So we made some consistent templates, we kept adding some stuff. We want to keep going with some more things. I really want to add the indigenous names of plants. Make sure the references are up to date. Add some more photos. We want some good photos if anyone's got some. we want to keep adding stuff to it. So that's the website down there where you start. You can just Google Australian Plant Society New South Wales. It's an organisation that's about 60, 70 years old now, and it's had various names, like the Society for Growing Australian Plants. That changed to Australian Plant Society, but we've been around for sort of 70 years or something like that. So it's a voluntary made plant profile database, currently around 1,000 species. When I say that, I should say 1,000 species and cultivars. So we put cultivars up there as well. It's not just natural species. So if you combine the species and the cultivars, there's 1,000 up there. Naturally occurring Australian plants, and I've just realised I should have said cultivars as well, with botanical and horticultural information, physical traits, natural geographic ranges, uses in the garden. We've got them in categories: trees, large shrubs, small shrubs, grasses, clumping plants, vines and scramblers. And something like this should have a why. You should put a why behind it. Why are you bothering to do this? Aren't there enough botanical databases out there? And, there's iNaturalist, and there's, something like Angus Stewart's website and all that. Yeah, there's some good ones out there. There's also the Australian Native Plant Society, or it's the Australian, what do they call it? The Australian National Plant Society Australia. They've got plant profiles like this, and they're around 1,000 as well at the time being. But I just thought this was something I could leave as a bit of a legacy of all the stuff I've learnt. We're encouraging people to grow native plants, and we want to provide information on what's cultivated as well as what might be cultivated in the future. We want to show people the length and the breadth and the depth of the plants that are out there. What I like to do is look at an exotic plant in Sydney and go, I've got a native that'll do that. I've got a native plant that'll do just that. You didn't have to buy that one. Think about how our gardens create ecological resource for the local, wildlife and the local ecology. So that's our why behind it. And what I think is, I don't just worry about people who use the website today. I sort of think, well, maybe, people to come will use it in 20, 30 years time. I'm not sure. But we keep putting profiles up there. We keep trying to expand the list. There's a lot of editing. There's a lot of checking that goes on. For every new plant that goes up there, it's probably about an hour and a half's worth of work for all the people involved. But that's what we try and do. So we do have a why behind it. We think the way it combines natural and horticultural information, that's a bit lacking on Australian websites regarding plants. When we look at our stats, the good old Google Analytics, the pages on the website are getting about 2,500 views a day. So we think that's pretty good. Might be misleading information, but it's up to over 2,000 to 3,000 views a day of separate views. So we think that's pretty good and worth to keep going, sort of thing. So if you get into this web page here, resources, Australian plants, the plant database, and that title I had at the front, you can click on that as well. You can read this page. You can read all about it. Dan Clark, I became the editor, and then all these people got involved. You can read more info using the database, and we've got some other pages on the website too, which are about local groups and recent articles, and you can check out the local groups and see what they're doing. You can go on bushwalks and that sort of thing. Yeah, you can get to a page like this, and these are all clickable, so you can click on all these categories, go in. I've done a massive editing process of all the plants on there, in addition to uploading new ones, to make them more consistent, to try and make all plants on there in all genera have consistent information, get rid of the typos, get rid of any mistakes. There's been plenty of editing, and yeah, it goes on and it goes on, and I'm going through the trees again now and just doing little edits and little tweaks. Click on the trees and you'll go into something like this. Plants are in alphabetical order based on species, you know, genus and then species. As you can see there, any cultivars, like say you had, for example, acacia, lime, lemon, or what do they call it, lime light or something like that. The cultivars will be down below once all the botanical names are finished. So once you get to Acacia Z, and I don't know if there are any Acacia Zs, but once you get to Acacia Z, after that, then you'll get the Acacia cultivars, and you know, we'll go from A through to Z again. So look for the cultivars down further, but you know, obviously acacias, wattles, there's a lot of them there. Abrophyllum, there's only one species, so that's all there is there. We don't have every acacia. We've just got the wattles that we've got photos for. So we need to have photos for the plants that we whack up. If we don't sort of have our own photos, we sort of hold off putting the plant up. What we were really lucky to have is a bloke called Alan Fairley. Some viewers might be aware of him. He wrote a field guide of plants for Sydney, Fairley and Moore. I think it's native plants of the Sydney district. Alan wrote that. Alan donated us all his photos. All his plant photos were given to us with free rein to use them. So we put them on this website. Some of the photos, so we're really appreciative to have that from Alan. Some of the photos are mine, like this Acacia dilbata, this Acacia decurrens, that's mine, when I've snapped them in the field. But I've said this to many members, if you've got better photos, if you get on this profile database and you see, oh, the photo's really crappy, I've got a much better one than that. Well, if you're happy for us to use it, I think there's a contact on the website there somewhere. You can just hit us up and say, I've got better photos of Acacia binivata. Do you want them? And if you send them through, I'll put them on and I'll credit you. I'll put your name next to the photo and credit you. So if you go into Abrophyllum ornans, if you click on that box, you'll get this profile. And there, for example, image Alan Fairley. Sometimes the images aren't consistently referenced, but if you do send me your photos, I'll put it on here, can do it really quick, and I'll make damn sure that the image is attributed to you. So you can do that. You'll get a profile here, family name. We did have a problem with the website recently where all the family names disappeared, but we figured that out and got them back on. I normally start with the type of plant it is and how big it will get. We normally give you a natural dimension, not really a horticultural dimension. That can be, normally smaller, sometimes bigger. People are very keen these days on knowing how big the plant is. If it's too, big, they don't want to plant it, obviously, in a lot of urban areas now. So try and give you that. I then give you the natural information, where it's found naturally is what that means. Then we go into stuff about the leaves. In this case, this seems to be the only species in the genus, so I tell you the leaves are simple and alternate, trying to really give you some botanical tidbits. Anything that's useful about the leaves. Normally I put there what the colour of them are too. They're not always green. Give you info about the flowers and then give you info about the fruits. And that's sort of consistent with websites like New South Wales Flora Online. They'll do it in that order. Then we have this nice in the garden section. Now, I'm not a natural expert on this or an expert at all, because I've had gardens, I've grown some plants, but I'm nowhere near across what other members are across in how you grow these plants, how they grow, how do they go in a frosty area, how do they go in a really hot, humid area, will they grow in a Mediterranean climate, for example, somewhere like South Australia. I'm not the best on this, but what we try and do is just fill this up with useful information from members who are growing them. And sometimes we've got a lot of info, and sometimes we're sort of going, well, I've never heard of anyone growing this plant, but if you did grow it, maybe this is what it would like. So, but we try and chop this out with a lot of information. So if you want to put it in your garden, it's going to do well. Propagation, that's really good. There's a lot of Australian Plant Society members who are mucking around and propagating, and they know what the best methods are. Goes down into other information. We just might give some historical anecdotes about the plant. We might say it's got some medicinal use. We like to say First Nations people used it for this. So we'll just give some tidbits there. I always put in a summary of the genus, and in this case, Abrophyllum ornans, it's sort of the only species in the genus, but it looks like they might be in the process of splitting it. Endemic to Australia, New South Wales and Queensland, I try and put in information like that. For something like eucalyptus, you're going to get a big paragraph of what eucalyptus is all about. I try and put in some fire information because we just had a spell at TAFE there where we sort of found that if you want to look up Australian native plants and how they respond to fire, there's very little information. There's almost nothing. It's like we need a bit of a database or some sort of website where called, Australian plants, responses of Australian plants to fire. And I just gave my TAFE students 3 sort of categories of, they'll either regenerate from seed, with the adult plants being killed. They'll regenerate from a lignotuber, or they'll regenerate from epicormic shoots, or they'll regenerate from general suckering of the buried root parts, something like Dianella. But, that's just me sort of trying to make my own categories on what plants do after fire. But there's not a lot of info out there on the web. This is what I like. I try and tell you what the genus and species means. Now, sometimes this can take a lot of time. This can take a lot of time to research. A lot of the time it's fine, but sometimes it's a bit of a dive. Sometimes in books and websites, what you read about this, what the genus means, isn't correct. It's not correct. And what I've done is I've gone into the actual 19th century botanical journal written by someone like, Robert Brown or, George Bentham or someone like that. And I've actually plugged in the Latin into Google Translator as best I can. And I've actually come up with a better definition for what the name actually means. So sometimes they are incorrect, like Wikipedia, for example, other botanical websites. You can read an incorrect idea of what the genus name means. That's not always the case. It's hardly ever the case, but I have found it more often than you would think. So I've gone into the ancient Greek, I've gone into the Latin, and I've sometimes found out a different meaning to what everyone else thinks. So, I could be wrong, I could be off the track, of course, but I've done that sort of thing. Sometimes here I'll put the actual Greek words in because I did learn a little bit of Greek, and I'm married to a Greek lady. I put in the actual Greek words and tell you what that what sort of root Greek words this has come from. But you can see it means delicate leaf. Ornans is Latin for ornate, showy, decorative, or elaborate. So it's good to learn you can get a bit of that. And then we like to put in whether the plant is at risk of extinction or considered to be a risk of extinction. So we try and put that sentence in all the time. Sometimes a plant is listed as threatened in New South Wales, we'll put that in. Sometimes the plant is common in New South Wales, but it's listed as endangered in Victoria or Queensland. That's very interesting, and we try and put that in as well. Give you some references. Hopefully these links work. If they crash, we need to try and fix them, but you get some references there. And just going into another section, the grasses and the monocots, the grasses and the lily type plants, the lomandras, the dianellas, that sort of thing. Try and promote these native grasses at Australian Plant Society. Things like poa and themata and dicalacne, they can be very useful in a garden, but some of these things can be grown as well, like Blandfordia and native ginger, arthropodiums, they'd be nice to grow as well. Bulbini bulbosa, this is a Nice, beautiful plant you find in the Australian bush. I've got some of these in my garden. They're doing really well in a clump. Flower really well. Bees visit them. All the common names there. Family name, and then you'll get the same thing. You'll get the same thing. Try and give you a rundown of the genus. Try and give you a rundown of the flowers. The fruits are capsule. Author's notes. In the garden, blah, 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 on it goes. So it's really useful. I hope you can make use of it and have a look at it. Here's all the people that were involved. I just give a plug to Jeff Howes. Jeff just tried to write up profile after profile after profile and send them through to me. And then I put like a consistent sort of approach on them. But Jeff's done like most of the work in getting profiles up and running. And we hit the 1,000 mark, and we sort of had a breather after about, 4 years. We sort of had a breather. So we wish we'd made more progress, but that's all we've done. All these people have had a go at writing some profiles, and I just wanted to point out the late Warren Sheether. Warren was really the guy who got this started. He was the one who started putting profiles together, and with a mixed amount of information. I never got to meet Warren, and I'm sort of regret that. But Warren, he had a big garden up in the Armidale area of New South Wales, and was a really, really keen native plant grower, and he really knew a lot of stuff. And he helped out at the Uni of New England teaching students botany as well. The guy was really good. He'd drive around Australia looking at Australian flora. So he sort of got it started. He wrote about 300 profiles of his own, and then I got them, edited them. I kept all Warren's notes in there, but I gave them that consistent editing, expanded them, put his notes in for garden use and cultivation and propagation and that sort of thing. And, he's really credited for starting the whole thing off in about 2019 or somewhere like that. So, yeah, it's a shame we lost Warren, but he deserves a plug. So have a look, get on, see what you think. It should be a good, solid, botanical and horticultural reference. That's what we're trying to get it as. And I'm sort of hoping in the future, just more and more people get on and use it as a good secondary resource. Alrighty, just wanted to introduce that to you in case you haven't seen it. A ton of my input is there regarding botanical, parts of plants, hopefully to help you with your identification. Thanks, guys.